Welcome to this explainer. Let's jump right in. We're tackling a massive challenge that is literally keeping executives up at night right now. How exactly do you transform those artificial intelligence pilots into measurable, enterprise-scale financial value? Today, we are distilling some really cutting-edge research from MIT, Microsoft, and McKinsey into a concrete, no-nonsense roadmap for leaders. So if you need to justify your tech investments to the board and actually reshape your organization, you are absolutely in the right place. Let's get into it.
Look, the most crucial number you need to remember today is 12%. According to a massive global survey by PwC, only 12% of companies are achieving both revenue growth and cost reduction from their AI initiatives. 12. That means the vast majority of organizations are trapped in what we call Pilot Purgatory. They're spending enterprise-scale money, for sure, but they are seeing absolutely zero measurable financial benefit hitting the balance sheet.
To solve this multi-million-dollar problem, we're going to walk through a specific executive blueprint. We'll cover the value gap, assessing your true maturity, agentic integration, leading a cultural transformation, and finally, proving those financial returns. Okay, Section 1, the artificial intelligence value gap. We really need to understand the financial disparity between organizations that are just playing around and those operating at a transformational scale. The contrast in the market right now is just stark. Unstructured, isolated pilots, they stall out because they lack an organizational foundation. But then you have what BCG calls future-built organizations. These are companies that structurally embed AI into their core operations, and the payoff is huge. We're talking up to 5 times higher revenue uplifts and 3 times greater cost reductions than their peers. Real-world leaders in retail and finance, they aren't just buying better tech. They have a fundamentally higher organizational maturity that lets them seamlessly scale things like automated customer service and predictive risk models.
Moving to Section 2, assessing your artificial intelligence maturity. Because to cross this gap, you first have to honestly diagnose where you stand.
By combining deep research from MIT and Microsoft, we get an incredibly clear maturity framework. Look, you can't just magically jump from level 1 ad hoc tools to level 5 multi-agent orchestration. It doesn't work that way. Every single step up requires a deliberate executive-led mandate. You have to upgrade your infrastructure and your governance policy at the exact same time. For instance, making the leap from level 2 to level 3 means shifting from basic, separated environments to a standardized architecture with fully documented governance. Each stage cumulatively builds the specific operational muscle you need for the next one.
This whole progression requires a highly deliberate path. Your organization has to shift away from fragmented, uncoordinated initiatives like, a single department testing a chatbot in total isolation and move toward an optimized, future-ready state. In that mature Microsoft agentic model, these agent-based processes are continuously driving business model innovation and completely reshaping your corporate operating model.
But let's do a quick reality check from MIT. A staggering majority of enterprises are frankly just stuck. 28% are merely experimenting, and 34% are building isolated pilots. Only 7% have actually achieved that coveted future-ready status, where they are mature enough to start selling new AI capabilities as a service. Just 7%.
Section 3, bridging the agentic chasm. Getting to those advanced stages introduces autonomous agents, and that brings a completely new set of hurdles.
As you start deploying autonomous agents, your frontline teams are inevitably going to hit a wall. They're going to struggle with fragmented data silos, elevated security risks, and a total lack of automated governance. I mean, think about it. If a human has to manually sequence every single task an agent performs, you aren't really scaling, right? And frontline teams cannot fix structural data architecture by themselves. Overcoming this requires executives to actively step in, smash those departmental silos, and mandate automated governance from the top down. To actually scale this securely, your tech infrastructure has to radically evolve. In the early stages, basic environment separation and reactive security might get you by. But when you move to the agentic stage, you absolutely need shared enterprise data management, automated deployment pipelines, and proactive, predictive risk monitoring. If your governance doesn't scale right alongside your tech, those autonomous agents become a massive liability instead of an asset.
On to Section 4, leading the cultural shift. Because infrastructure alone is never, ever enough.
There's a fascinating finding from MIT here. AI integration absolutely fails under a rigid, fear-based command and control mindset. It just doesn't work. To succeed, executive leaders must actively model a coach and communicate culture. You need to act as facilitators, empower your frontline workforce to safely experiment without the paralyzing fear of making a mistake. The highest maturity organizations out there thrive precisely because of this continuous learning and decentralized decision-making.
So, how do you actually build that culture? You need a structured roadmap. In the first 6 months, focus entirely on basic literacy training and setting up clear risk policies so your people feel safe. Then, by months 6 to 12, you start scaling proven use cases and building internal champion communities to drive grassroots acceptance. Finally, around months 12 to 24, you'll be ready to establish centers of excellence for cross-functional agent deployment. It's a very systematic journey of building capability.
Which brings us to our final and honestly most critical section: rigorously proving the financial return on investment.
To get sustained funding from the board, you have to prove the economics. McKinsey's 5-layer measurement framework is brilliant for this. It establishes an auditable, logical proof of value from the ground up. You start at layer 5 with technical performance and model health. You have to prove that technical stability drives layer 4, which is user adoption. That adoption then has to improve layer 3 operational KPIs, like reduced cycle times. Those KPIs deliver layer 2 strategic outcomes, which ultimately feed into layer 1, the hard financial impact. You simply cannot claim ROI without tracking the direct causality through every single layer of this pyramid.
And accountability has to map directly to this framework. Every single metric needs an executive owner. Your engineering lead owns the technical layer metrics like token span and latency. But those technical costs must explicitly bridge the gap to your chief financial officer, who owns the top layer metrics like margin expansion and revenue uplift. This is how you prove to the board that your IT operations are directly, undeniably tied to the company's ledger. By rigorously tracking these metrics across all 5 layers, you can confidently transition your capabilities. You evolve from relying on established value sources, like your basic chatbots and content generation, to emerging applications where autonomous agents are actually trusted to make independent decisions without a human constantly having to double-check everything.
This disciplined, coordinated approach is exactly what unlocks those massive gains we talked about at the very beginning. It allows you to completely reshape critical business functions for 30 to 50% efficiency improvements. And more importantly, it gives you the solid foundation needed to invent entirely new, high-margin business models that simply weren't possible before.
So, I'll leave you with the ultimate question for your executive team. Are you merely buying disconnected technology tools and just hoping for the best? Or are you actively building a resilient, governed, AI-fueled enterprise? The blueprint for structural and financial maturity is right in front of you. Now, it's time to build. Thanks for joining this explainer.